and welcome to Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. I'm Garth Neufeld, along with Eric Landrum, your podcast hosts. As the name implies, we center on conversations about teaching, but we often veer into other interesting topics, which is the and stuff. This is episode number 88, where Eric had the opportunity to interview Ciara Kidder from Marian University in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. But before we get to that, Psych Sessions is now sponsored by STP. That's APA Division II. Yes, that is our teaching tribe. I want to quickly mention some upcoming dates and deadlines. First, STP's annual conference on teaching will be held on October 8th to 10th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the deadline for proposals is coming soon. It's April 10th. Visit teachpsych.org for more information. And if you are an STP member who has recently received an award or a recognition or an accomplishment that has been released to the press, please send a link of that press release to STP at teachpsych.org with the subject STP Member Achievement for inclusion in an upcoming issue of STP News. And if you didn't see, we just rolled out a 10-episode mini-series on Ask Psych Sessions, all focused on online teaching. This is a great resource for educators who are brand new to online teaching or who have been doing it for a while. We even reached out outside of our tribe to national experts in online education. So you'll want to check that out for some great ideas. And if you have not yet had a chance to go and rate Psych Sessions on iTunes, we invite you to leave a rating there, as it helps us pop in teaching-related searches and psychology-related searches. Help Psych Sessions get out there to more teachers of psychology. Now, before you hear this interview with Ciara Kidder, please allow me to share some listening tips and some of my favorite moments. Yes, we got Ciara Kidder from Marian University, from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. That's end of the lake en français. From Twitter, and you probably know her from the Novice Professor blog, which she started a few years back. Actually, Eric and Ciara talk about that blog and that experience quite a lot at the beginning of this episode, and I found it really, really interesting. Now, before I get to that, second time's a charm for this interview, so they're going to tell you what happened in the first time. You would have heard from Ciara a lot earlier in our podcast releases, except Eric gets his numbers mixed up sometimes. So, interestingly enough, we had Ciara scheduled for this release today, and then the COVID-19 chaos started, and we wanted to release some episodes of Ask Psych Sessions that would help online instructors kind of get up to speed, new online instructors get up to speed. So Eric and I had a quick conversation. I said, should we bump Ciara's episode 1 week and release on Tuesday? And he and I both got real smart real quick and said, no, even though she doesn't know it, and nobody else would know that it's her who got bumped, we are not going to bump Ciara's episode again. So we ended up releasing that mini-series 2 days ago. You'll want to check it out there. So as long as there are no problems between the recording of this introduction on Sunday night and uploading this episode on Tuesday morning, you will hear from Ciara in just a minute. So the Novice Professor propelled Ciara into the national scene of the teaching of psychology. What I like about her reflection on this whole situation is that she has this humility about continuing to be a novice teacher, that we are all novice at something. I love the story of starting the Novice Professor because I have started a few things, some that work, some that don't. I know how challenging it is to pull something off and to keep it afloat. That rhymed. And she just thought to herself, what if I started a blog? What if I just did this one thing? And then step by step, and particularly as she committed to it and posted regularly, this thing started to grow and she got to bring her friends into it. And now Ciara has this confidence, where she, I think, feels like she could start something new and be successful at it with this background. So talk about self-efficacy. Now she tells others that they can do it as well. And so she has a lot of contributors on her blog, and I think she does a lot of encouraging of people's ideas. Now, Eric asked a very, very interesting question, which was, how does your institution feel about this success? Is it recognized? Is it even known? How does this impact tenure and promotion? How do those things all work out? And they have a nice conversation about that. Well, Ciara grew up in the CSI era, and so when she went to college, she studied DNA forensic science, and then shifted away from that a little bit when she found I loved this, an introductory psychology class, which was cool, and then a social psychology class, which was very cool. And that was it for her from that point on. Ciara mentions that she did not have great study skills, but you can tell that she was a really good student, just without good study skills. So she did lots of stuff. She was an athlete. She worked in the yearbook, Junior State of America Club, talks about all these things. She was a national technical drawing competitor. Yes, a national technical drawing competitor. I didn't even know that was a thing in high school. She describes herself as a bit of a perfectionist, and when I see what she has done and when I look at her history, this thread is very clear. She is extremely ambitious. She hedges her bets. She works really hard. She has a plan B, and that is probably seen most clearly when she was applying for jobs out of graduate school. And so after she did her doctorate at the University of Texas, El Paso in social cognitive neuroscience. Yes, that's a track at UTEP. She applied to, let's do multiple choice. A, 20, B, 40, C, 80, or D, 100 jobs. And so she reflects on that process and how that led to a few different open doors and offers. This episode ends with a conversation about fortuity, or luck, or coincidence, and really how Ciara got plugged into this STP teaching tribe, and how she became really one of our beloved and known national figures in the teaching of psychology world. It reminded me of, as she talks about NITOP and making some of those initial connections at NITOP, it reminded me that NITOP was a place where, in my early days, where I just happened to be in a shuttle with Beth Morling very early on. Before she knew me, I had seen her around and I had known who she was. But yeah, that stuff happens sometimes where you just end up in a car with somebody who is psychology famous, and you ended up at a conference or at a dinner with them, and they have all this expertise and all of these social connections in our teaching world, and our people are so great at just allowing other leaders in and really giving them a boost in their professional careers, and I appreciate that about all of you, our audience. So, hey, enjoy this episode and this conversation between Ciara and Eric. And Ciara, I am so glad that we could finally get you on the podcast. Thanks for doing it. All right, everybody, enjoy.
We are here in Denver for ACT 2019, and I am here with Ciara Kidder. Hi, Ciara.
Hi.
Thank you for being a guest on Psych Sessions. And so I'm going to start this podcast with an apology because we tried this, and you're a really good sport. Thank you.
Thank you.
We tried this at MPA 2019 in Chicago, and I was in a very nice hotel room in the Palmer House, and I thought I was in a certain room. Actually, I was in the room I was in. I thought it was a certain number, and I had emailed that to you, and hey, let's get together. I can't remember what it was, and I thought I was in, let's say, 732. But as it turned out, I was in something like 723. And not only did you come to the room I said at the time in the day, so did another person, Scott Vanderstop at Hope College. I made the same mistake with someone else. I doubt if that makes you feel any better.
It's fine.
It's really sweet of you to say that that's fine, but it was highly inconvenient because I think you were going to meet some friends and you had put them off to come record.
If I recall, I probably was just going to go to a session and didn't.
That could have been a life-changing session that you blew off for
possible.
me. So thank you again for changing your
welcome.
career trajectory in Chicago and for taking a risk that I would actually show up here on a Friday night at ACT. I appreciate it.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
So I think we're probably going to do reverse chronology,
Okay.
I would imagine. But the super cool thing that you have done so how far into your post-PhD career are you?
I am in my 4th year teaching full-time.
Teaching full-time. Got your PhD 3.5 years ago-ish?
Yes.
Was there any postdoc
No.
things going on in there?
Nope.
Okay,
I went straight into my tenure track job.
Okay, congratulations,
Oh,
by the
thank
way,
you.
on that. And you've been at Marian University the entire time?
Yes.
And where is that, please?
That is in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Oh.
So that is like an hour 10 north of Milwaukee, an hour 10 from Green Bay, and like an hour 20 from Madison.
And small private liberal arts?
Yes.
SLIC.
Yes, it serves the local community, so we serve a lot of first generation students. So it's not like an elite private school.
Gotcha.
We're a service type school designed to serve the community. It's run by the Sisters of St. Agnes.
Okay, I was going to go there.
And they're very social justice oriented. And so that's
Catholic affiliated.
It is Catholic affiliated.
Yeah.
Mostly in the social justice kind of take on tradition and serving. So it was like originally a school for nursing and education.
Okay.
And serving that local rural Wisconsin area in that way, and then it grew into what it is now.
And you may have already said this, and I apologize. I'm going to say flavor, but I don't. Is it Benedictine or Jesuit or
It's Agnesian. They have their own
wow
flavor.
That's an N of 1? There's only the only.
Don't know that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So
I think so though.
and this is wow. We're going really straight to the none of my business department. Are you Catholic or
I am
raised?
not.
Okay. So when you okay, wow, maybe we don't. So out of grad school, I applied to Baylor University in Waco, Texas,
Right.
which is a Southern Baptist institution, and I was alerted to if I had gotten a job there, I would sign a document that said. As a professor, I'm going to paraphrase because that was a long time ago. As a professor, you would adhere to the doctrines and the general beliefs of the Southern Baptist Convention. It didn't say I had to follow the Bible and the Ten Commandments, but it was a general document. I'm not quite sure how seriously the faculty took it, but I was told about it during my interview. Is there a certain similar type of document for faculty?
So they're very much, so one of the core values is spiritual tradition, and it's about respecting other people's spiritual traditions. So we have students who are not Catholic who come for other reasons, plenty of faculty who are not Catholic or even religious. So it's very much just about respecting and talking about spiritual traditions. So all students do take theology. So we have like an introduction to Christianity requirement and then an additional theology class, but they can take things like world religions and other types of traditions. And that's a core part of the, again, that's that 4 core values of the university. But there is no I didn't have to write any kind of religious statement or sign anything to attest to that.
All right.
It's kind of like general upholding the traditions of the university.
I got sidetracked there a little bit.
It's okay.
But because where I wanted to go with, in your 3.5 years as a new professor, you did something that I think is pretty incredible. That I think, I'm not sure my opinion matters much, but I think others would agree with me, that kind of launched you on a national playing field.
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You started something called what?
The Novice Professor.
All right, and would you tell our listeners what that is, please?
Sure. So the Novice Professor is a blog I actually technically started my first year. As a faculty member, I didn't write very much because I was a new faculty member.
Right.
But about a year and a half, so midway through my second year, I got some colleagues, Carly Schleitzer and Jen Blesch, who were graduate students at the time, to agree to help me write. And essentially for us, the blog is just talking about teaching and psychology and scholarship of teaching and learning. And it's a platform for us as new true novice professors to share what we do and why we do it. But I also have the perspective that we're all really novice, at least at something. Mm-hmm. We're not all experts at everything. And for me, the blog is a platform for others to come and see, they're teaching intro and they haven't taught it in a long time, or they've never taught it. Well, we have a series about people talking about how they teach intro, and, maybe you're teaching online, and we have some people who have talked about that. And I think my favorite thing about it is now that we've gotten some national recognition from and support from people like you, we've been able to have some really great guests, and we've got other young faculty who are like, I could try this. And it's been really great. And today I actually met 2 or 3 people that I've never met before that were on the blog, that I've talked to on Twitter or through email, that have written for us. And that's just so fun. So
you're in the middle of, actually, you didn't say in the middle, you're at the start of your assistant professorship out of grad school. And I'm going to say this with all due respect. Where the hell do you get the idea for this? And my follow-up, where do you find the freaking time to do something extra on top of a new job?
I don't know. So I was trying to think of when I got the idea for it. And I remember I was transitioning my web page. I started one as a grad student when I went on the job market. And I was transitioning it to a new platform. And I was like, oh, they have a blog thing. I wonder if I could write a blog. I wonder if people would read it. And I was like, I don't think I've ever read about what it's like to be a first-year professor. At least not at a teaching college. I was like, I should write about that. And I did. And the first few posts were like that. It was more what is my experience and what am I doing right now? Eventually, after and I think I posted once a month. And I would just put it on my schedule. This is something I need to do, just to do it. And then eventually it was a lot more global. Here's how I'm thinking about this, especially after I went to NITOP. I had lots of ideas. And then I started talking about that in my posts. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of tapered off as I got busy.
So is that really how it started?
That's really how it started. I really don't.
You saw when you were transitioning your website, you saw a feature.
Yes, that's literally how it started. And then I Googled, I was ooh, what could I call this? I don't want it to be called the new professor. That's weird. So then I was Googling stuff to figure out what's something that nobody has so far. Mm-hmm. And that's where I struck on the novice professor, because I was well, this has lots of meaning. And my first post talked about, and I think there's even bits from my first post still on our new webpage, in the about section. And that's the original post I made about what the whole purpose of it was for.
And from that very beginning, did you go Google, is thenoviceprofessor.com available? Did you do that from the very beginning?
No, I Googled the Novice Professor though, and there was nothing yet. So when we decided to get a website, I was pretty sure it was going to be available.
You grabbed it.
And then we grabbed it. We were actually, when Carly and Jen started, so that would have been NITOP almost 2 years ago. So that's 2018 is when they came on board. We were planning to do the website over the summer, but we had so many people getting excited about it that we're okay, spring break, we got to get this website up. And because we got to stop putting people on my personal webpage. Like, we need to have a better presence than this. We got Carly's sister is a graphic designer, so or a graphic artist. So she helped us design our logo. And then we went through a website redesign that I did over the summer, I think over the summer. So it's just morphed into this huge thing.
It has. It's awesome.
It's
you
crazy.
are an entrepreneur.
Thanks. It doesn't feel like that some days, but
well, what is it?
It's very exciting. Like, sometimes it's very like surreal. Like, people know who I am. Like I said, I just met someone that I never met in real life, and she was talking about me like, I wondered if you were her, and I was like, I've never had that. Like, that's weird to say. Are you like who I think you are?
Tell me what you mean. What do you mean?
I don't know. It's just surreal to feel that level of recognition is very. I've never felt a national type, like that people know who I am and I've never met them. It's kind of weird.
Oh, I see. Because they've become to know you
through my
online.
blog. Yes,
right.
through Twitter, but even through the blog is like very strange.
So you're having these IRL experiences.
Yes.
You're meeting someone in real life for the first time.
Yes.
But they feel like
even
they
just
know
like
you.
she felt like I was this person that was doing this great thing and she wanted to meet me. And I'm like, I feel that way about a lot of people. So it's very strange.
I've heard celebrities talk about this. So I don't listen to a lot of other podcasts, but I've heard, who is it? Zach Shepard. Dax Shepard. He'll talk about people will come up to him, and because they listen to his podcast, they act like they know him. But they've never met him in real life. And it's just a little bit weird when if you talk a lot about personal things or your teaching style,
right?
And someone will come up to you and say, "Hey, that was a great thing that you did 3 weeks ago in that general psych class. Remember when you did that thing?" And you'll go, "How did you know?" "Oh yeah, that's right. I wrote about it."
Right.
Yeah, and so it's that public sharing. Sometimes people will go, I'll be at a conference and I'll use an example. I will forget I've used it in a talk, and someone will email me, and I'll go, "How the hell did they know that I will forget like that?" Yeah. So at some point, you're not going to be able to call yourself a novice professor anymore.
Yeah.
So and don't reveal it. Don't give it away. But do you have version 2.0 name to transition?
I don't. I haven't thought about it at all. I think this goes back to that very first post. I talked about how, even if I get tenure in 5 years, I'll still feel like I'm a novice at something.
Right.
And I also really want to keep getting graduate students on. I still want to keep that as part of the blog. And so I think it will always be the Novice Professor, at least right now. Who knows? Maybe I'll start another blog or a corner or like a regular series about the mid-career professor. But yeah, but I don't have plans.
Well, I think it should be a yes and, right? I
Right.
You've done this, and you did it from scratch out of midair. I mean, I've heard people talk about, and I'm not an artist, but I've heard people talk about sculptors and the art was in the rock the whole time,
right,
and you revealed it. No one had ever done the Novice Professor. It was there the whole time. You Googled it, and no one had ever done it.
Yeah.
It was there.
Yeah.
It took hard work on top of a new job.
Yes.
And you did it.
Yes.
And so whatever is there next for you down the road, it's there waiting for you. And now you know you can do it.
Yes, I do.
That's the cool thing. So don't be limited by, I don't know if I can do it or not. And that's what I hope listeners will take away from this.
Yeah, and that's when I've been talking with people about the blog a little bit, just being here. People who have never. Carly did a great poster during the poster session on the blog and blogging in this current era. And I love to, people will sometimes look at awe, and I'm like, you guys could totally do this. Like, If you have an idea, great. If you don't have an idea, just ask and we'll come up with an idea for you. Just to get your feet wet, and you'll see how easy it becomes to talk about what you're doing. Like, we do it so much, especially as teachers of psychology, we do it so much in real life at conferences. We love to talk about what we're doing and share ideas. Let's do this at an even broader level and impact more people.
Yeah, but let's not discount the difficulty of what you're doing, because yes, we talk about it, but we don't write about it.
Yes, that's true. It takes practice.
Yeah, and so people love to talk, and there are people out right now having in the middle of their 3-hour dinners, because academics love to go do that.
Yes.
We both know this, right?
Yeah.
But they're not back in their room writing for 3 hours their next 5 blog posts.
That's true.
So
yeah.
there's a discipline there.
There is. And one of I think the benefits of blogging is that you get to practice reflecting on what you're teaching. That's one of the things that I think I have benefited greatly in terms of like my annual reviews. I've gotten a lot of comments about how detailed they are and how I'm giving really good evidence about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It's like, that's because I practice, because I write 20 blog posts a year, like about my teaching because you have to think about those things to write a good post. And that has improved my peer evals, I think.
And I promise we're not going to talk about this the whole time.
That's okay.
I promise. but I do want to follow up on that a bit. So obviously when you started, you probably weren't thinking about this is going to help me get promotion and tenure.
No, I was not.
You were thinking, this is a cool outlet. Actually, I already know when you started. Look at that. There's a feature on this new website that is not on my old website. So now I know. All right. And by the way, I am going to tease you about this.
It's pretty embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. It's
No,
just
it's
like
not.
one of those things that I was like, he's going to ask me about this. And my story is so like, it's just, I was curious. I don't really have a good explanation.
It's awesome. I mean, it's honest. I mean, good for you. I mean, imagine I'm just trying to think of clever things. What if there had been other options on there?
Like, what would I be doing?
Yeah. What if it had been like
know.
a photo option? You might be, taking pictures. And
I might be like the psych teacher on Instagram. I don't know.
Yeah, or something like that. Or maybe there would be, a podcast option. Maybe we'd be out of business, and you'd be doing this, and I'd be doing the interview.
Maybe
it could be, and that could still happen. By the way, we should probably talk about that.
Okay.
That could be an option.
It could be.
So when you started, obviously, I'm guessing, as you already said, that you weren't thinking about what the potential would be for your career, but now you're in your 4th year. When you're assembling your annual, progress towards tenure or whatever you call it at Marian, are you getting some street cred? Are you getting some traction?
It's been well received.
Okay.
My dean raves about it and his eval of me. My peers are happy about it. We don't have our research requirement is more of a scholarly engagement. It's at least that's kind of how I think about it. And I've talked about, again, I'm posting 20 blog posts a year. They're getting views.
Right,
way more than any article that I post.
Right. You can quantify that.
Yeah, I can quantify it. And I use specific language. I talk about how it's so I talk about it as both service and scholarship.
Sure.
And I talk about how it allows me to reflect on my teaching. It allows me to engage with people in other disciplines, in other institutions. So I really kind of focus on the professional development aspect,
right.
But also that this is a service to people in the community because I'm giving them new ideas. I'm allowing other people opportunities to blog. I'm learning things from other people. And so I've developed a way to talk about it that it has been useful at my institution.
It's the public facing of not only you, but your department, your university.
Yeah.
If it hasn't happened yet, I'm guessing it will eventually lead to invitations for you to have speaking opportunities or collaboration opportunities. It may lead to, hey, we're writing a book about non-traditional
We're
means.
doing that.
So those things
written
already
a chapter. We're in the progress of writing we just got edits back for a GTSA
Right.
This is how we teach now. We've
And
got a chapter in it.
And that's not going to be the last one.
No.
That may be the first one. It's not going to be the last one.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like, I definitely, when I started thinking about it, I was like, this is not a thing that anybody's going to read. But it's been super awesome.
Yeah.
It's very cool, and I'm excited. We've got great ideas. Once my team is a little further into their careers and not quite so overwhelmed with being first year full-time faculty members, we're going to apply for some grants. We're going to do some curriculum stuff, maybe some consulting work. We don't know.
Maybe
Something.
a blog boot camp where you have, there are tomorrow here at ACT, there are 2-hour workshops in the morning. I could see at next year's ACT a 2-hour blog workshop
That's
that
a
you
great
and your
idea.
team.
We'll have to submit that.
Karen Brocky and I are doing a storytelling one tomorrow.
Oh,
I
that's
could
cool.
see the next version of that being you and your team doing. You want to blog? Come to our 2-hour ACT workshop.
That's a great idea.
And we'll show you the software. We'll give you some starter ideas, and we'll show you how to launch. You got to do it in WordPress. You do it this way. You want to do it on Weebly. You do it this way. Blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, and you become proselytizers. I mean, Garth and I get asked all the time, so how do you do it? How do you pick out the microphones? What's the software that you use for editing? And so you will become the proselytizers.
We should probably have you guys write a post about that.
Well, we would. Of course we would. Every time that you guys have asked, all y'all have asked me, I've been honored to.
We love having you.
Well, of course. I'm going to support my colleagues, absolutely, in every way. All right, so is there anything else that you want to add about the Novice Professor? Because there's more to you than just that, but that's a big part of you and your current success.
I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. All right. So, a really common question that we love to ask about origin story, and you can go far back as you want, but a really common question is always, growing up, was it if you were going to go to college, or was the default what college are you going to go to?
I think it was kind of assumed that I would go to college.
Sure.
Like, I remember being in 7th grade, and we had like this weird programming at school where we had like a week or something that was like dedicated to talking about college.
Sure.
And so like I remember at that point, like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to college. Like, here's what I want to do, and like I was thinking about it that early. So I think it was always an assumption that in our family that was what we did.
And did mom and dad go to college?
So my parents both went to community college and have 2-year degrees. And I know my dad went to a 4-year college, but he did not finish because our family moved. And so he never fully finished his degree.
Sure.
But he's been taking classes on and off since then.
Of course.
So yeah, they did the 2-year thing. My sister she did 2 or 3 years of college and decided it wasn't for her. And she went to the Fashion Institute.
Older or younger?
Older.
Okay.
She went to the Fashion Institute in LA and had, I think that's a 2 or 3 year degree.
Sure.
In fashion design. And then I was the nerd.
Okay.
And went to college.
Just the two of
forever.
you?
Yes.
Two daughters. Okay. What's the age gap, if I can ask?
So she was 3 years older than me.
Okay. All right. Okay, so she went off to L.A. to do her thing,
Yes.
and then you graduate high school, and then you go straight to college.
Yes.
Okay, and where did you go?
I went to Lock Haven University in Pennsylvania.
Okay, I have heard of that.
Oh, good.
Okay, and a common question, did you major in psychology from day one?
I did not. I was in the CSI era. So
Okay.
So I went and I looked for school. So I grew up in Washington State.
Okay.
And I went to school in Pennsylvania because I wanted to leave. And I found Lock Haven had a program in DNA forensics. So I was going to be a lab rat.
So you could major in?
Yes, it
You
was
could
a
major?
special biochem major that they like combined biology and chemistry courses, and it was focused on DNA analysis in forensic settings.
Wow.
It was a really cool program. And the only reason I did not double major was because I knew I would never get into psych grad school with science grades.
Oh, with the science grades.
Yes. I would have double majored if I wasn't planning on going to graduate school, but I knew I needed to go.
What was it? Chemistry tripping you up, or
It was not having good study skills, and then chem.
Oh, wait a second. Okay, time out. What do you mean not having good? You had good enough study skills to get through undergrad and grad school.
I developed good study skills.
Okay.
About halfway through college after I dropped the double major.
Okay.
Before that, I was one of those people who could go to class and take notes and then take the test.
Okay.
And I didn't study.
Did high school come easy to you?
Yes.
So you really didn't get challenged and you didn't hone your skills there?
No. I mean, I was really good. I was in IB classes. And I remember studying for my chem IB test. And I was really good at flashcards. Very good at flashcards. But for the most part, I remember being in history. And again, just I could read my notes and then regurgitate, write good essays and things like that. And I managed and I did very well in high school. I coasted.
Okay.
And it wasn't until some of my upper level psych classes where I really had to hone my flashcard skills. But I was a flashcard memorizer.
You had the flashcard game down.
I did. I got really good at it.
Were you, and I mean this term with all due respect.
I know you do.
What's about to come? I mean, were you in high school? Were you a nerd? Did you kind of geek out on flashcards and studying? Were you in the math club?
I was in the math club. We started the mathletes.
I don't think
it lasted more than the year that we did it. Okay. We didn't actually ever do any competitions or anything because we were all. So I was in my group of friends. We were all in IB, so that's almost all your classes. I was the only one who was not full IB because I didn't want to take language anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I did a few other things. I took drafting, and I went to national competition for drafting.
It's actually kind of cool.
Which is cool. It's like a random skill I have.
I'm going to geek out on that. That is actually kind of cool.
It's really cool.
It really is.
And I was because I'm a perfectionist, so I was really good at technical drawing. So that's what I went to nationals for, technical drawing, because I just was good at it. I'm
going to circle back. I'm putting the pin in that perfectionist, okay. And I'm going to come back to that.
And then I took, I did yearbook my senior year.
Nice.
But they're our group of people, in particular the ones who did IB Chem over IB Bio. The IB Chem people were the really hardcore nerds. But I don't know if I geeked out about studying, but I worked in high school. I was an athlete. I did yearbook.
Wow.
So I was well-rounded.
Good.
But we were in the Junior State of America Club. Do you know that one? It's kind of pretend legislation.
Oh,
kind of
okay.
When you go to the JSA conference,
mm-hmm.
They're regional conferences, and you people would propose short bills, and then we would debate them. So it wasn't full debate,
right.
But it was kind of. That was what we did. We were pretty nerdy. So,
Ciara, I really appreciate you because this is actually explaining a lot. It's awesome.
I'm glad.
No, it's really quite enlightening. So I'm gonna flip forward to college.
Okay.
So was there any other majors in between the DNA forensics and psych? So
it was straight into psych. So I took intro psych, and I was this is cool. Then I took social psych. I was this is really cool. Let's double major. And I was I kind of had both for a semester, mm-hmm. my first semester of sophomore year, and then I took organic chemistry and botany. And I did fine in the classes. My grades ended up being fine. But my botany instructor, I didn't do well on an assignment. And he goes, well, why didn't you? I told him I didn't study for a lab practical or something. He's why didn't you study? I was well, I had a paper in psychology, and that's my main major. And he goes, oh. And I'm oh, yeah, I probably should just be a psych major and just not do this. I love science. I took some extra science classes as a senior, and I loved it. But I was I can't do this. Because I had prioritizing psych, and in science, you really gotta focus and put in a lot of time and effort to do well in those classes because they're hard.
And as an I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I just was like, okay, I'm just going to drop this major because I want to go to grad school, which means I need to have a good GPA. And so it's pulling me down. So I switched fully second semester of my sophomore year.
So you knew early you were going to grad school.
I did. Like, I don't know where that came from. Like, I don't know if I just assumed you had to go to grad school with a psych degree or if that's something someone told me. I don't remember distinctly.
So here's a theme that I'm picking up, and I could be off. That happens. You don't mess around.
No, I'm a planner.
But you're a decider and you're a doer.
I'm a decider in my career and in school. I hate making decisions when I go home.
Like, tell me what you mean by that.
Like, I hate picking what we're going to eat for dinner,
or where
like
where
you're going to restaurants, or like what we're doing. I don't want to think about it. So I just don't care.
The minor,
like the daily life stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, eh. And maybe it's just decision fatigue. Like, I have to make so many decisions for my students and my career that I'm just like, this is.
So do you have a hard time picking out what to wear?
I used to. I started doing a capsule wardrobe, so it's easier.
I don't know what that is.
It's where you have, theoretically you have fewer items and they all mix and match.
Oh, okay.
It's
sounds
like
good.
a French thing that is now kind of gaining popularity in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And after the decision fatigue talk that we had at NITOP last year, which you weren't there, I don't think.
No, I wasn't.
No, it was a really good talk about decision fatigue and how it impacts us in negative ways. And I was like, dude, like choosing your clothes is a lot of decisions. So I was like, I'm gonna capsule. So I started capsuling, and it's been easier because everything matches, so it's easier to pick things.
Okay.
And I like clothes, so it's a little easier.
I do know the Marie Kondo thing, but I don't know the capsule
I
thing.
have not watched her in the intentionally because I'm afraid if I do, I'm gonna like rip my house apart.
I read the book. I didn't watch the show.
Okay, I refuse to do either because I know as soon as I do, it's going to be an entire project because I definitely don't like stuff.
Yeah.
Like having a lot of things.
Does this make you happy?
But
Does this bring you joy?
Right? But I also am scared of taking on that project.
Yeah, then don't.
So I'm just not letting myself watch that.
So you graduate from Lock Haven,
Yes.
you get your bachelor's degree in psychology,
Yes.
and you go to graduate school at?
The University of Texas at El Paso.
UTEP.
Yes.
All right. And what's your specialty there? Oh, UTEP.
Where Carly and Jen were from.
And do you overlap with them as graduate students?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's where I met them.
And what program are you in there?
I was in the social cognitive neuroscience track.
Neuroscience. That sounds like a lot.
I mean, yeah.
Social cognitive neuroscience.
It was like a track, and then depending on your lab, you were. I think I'm more social cognitive, less neuro. But like all of our core courses, if you were in that, you had to take social and cognitive and neuro.
Okay.
And then a series of electives that fit within that field. We actually had a lot of coursework, which I appreciate as an instructor.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a lot more coursework than I think other programs had, like required courses.
Okay. It's just a really long name.
It is SCN.
SCN.
Yeah,
Is that common?
I don't know.
Around the country?
I think probably not. I think often social is not combined with cognitive.
Yeah.
Cognitive neuro
neuroscience.
Those are always
Yeah,
together. Social is less often, but like my lab was technically, I think, the social neuro lab. So we were doing my advisor Steve Kreitz worked with John Cassioppo.
Isn't he the founder of social neuroscience? John Cassioppo?
So he worked with him. So like we did social,
okay,
like he did
gotcha.
EEG research and attitude research.
Okay.
And then I was like the weird one who did morality attitudes and didn't do any EEG.
All right.
I was his strange one. But yeah, so we had a lot of people doing more, we had behavioral neuroscientists, we had more social cognition, and then like us with our social neuro.
And so you're at UTEP, and for how long are you at
5
UTEP?
years.
Okay, that's
I
pretty
went
good.
straight through. I had technically like 9 months off. I graduated at 3.5 years with my bachelor's.
Wow.
So I managed to have some time off and I worked at Lowe's.
Worked at Lowe's.
Yes, in the garden department as a cashier.
And
Good experience.
did that reaffirm your belief that you needed to go to graduate school?
Actually, yes, because I worked with a lot of people who had bachelor's degrees and couldn't get jobs. So I was like, yes, I'm doing the right thing. I mean, it was fun, and I actually made more money than my husband who had a real job. Lowe's pays really well, and they have great benefits. I was a seasonal employee and got they do bonuses. I got bonuses because I worked almost full time as a seasonal employee. And I got to work outside.
Okay. And you liked that?
I did. It was fun for the 9 months I did it.
So the 9 months that you did it.
Roughly, yeah.
What was I think this would be interesting to some of our listeners, and I'm so far removed from it. It's a joke at this point. What was the job market like? So you're done at UTEP. You've defended your dissertation, all that, and you're going out on the job market.
It was crazy.
So tell me.
I applied to 80 jobs.
Holy
not even
samoli.
Yeah, and I'm sure I applied to jobs that were not really a good fit because I was mostly worried about getting a job.
Sure.
And I applied to a lot of different kinds of institutions. I applied to community colleges in 4 years. I didn't apply to anything more than like a elites liberal arts slack.
So you're saying you did not apply to any R1s?
No, I knew I wanted to teach. I did quite a bit of teaching as a grad student, and I knew that was what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And I did decently well. I think I got 10 phone interviews and
wow.
Yeah, I actually was pleased. And then I probably did 4 or 5 campus interviews. So my turnover rate was really good considering how many.
Yeah, your hit rate was.
It was good.
Congratulations.
No thanks.
So you did,
and I think I got 2 job offers.
Okay, so all right, so back. Okay, slow down. Do you need to be somewhere?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So just slow down here a minute. Okay. So you applied to 80 schools.
It might have been 60. I'd have to look. I have the Excel document. I could pull it up.
You don't need to do that.
It's
80, 60,
something like that.
70, whatever. We can split the difference. But you get phone interviews. Did you say you said a dozen?
10 to 12. It was a lot. I was a very active. That's last semester when I was trying to do my actual dissertation. I was traveling a lot and on the phone a lot.
10 to 12 phone interviews. I'm going to come back to that. Put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to that. 10 to 12 that materialized into
4 or 5
campus interviews. And out of those 4 or 5 campus interviews, obviously you end up at Marian University. Mm-hmm. But I think you just said, though, that you were offered, you had 2 job offers.
Yes, I did.
I want to put a pin in that and come back to that because I'm not going to ask you the other school. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put you on the spot while that's recording. Right.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah. The phrase for that, it's off the record or off the air. 12. So I want to go back to the phone interviews because Boise State, we have a job ad out now. We have someone out about to retire, so we'll have a job ad out again next year. Do you have any recollection of, in terms of the telephone interviews, a best question or practice and then a worst question or practice? Because you did a dozen.
I did have a really bad question. I was so annoyed.
And obviously, I'm not asking you what school.
No, it was, so they were hiring for someone to teach statistics. And I taught 3 or 4 sections of statistics by the time I was on the market. And someone asked me, I had no idea this was coming. And they asked me how I explained type 1 and type 2 error. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I know this, but you're cold asking me this. So I said something, and I'm sure it was super not good. I'd never got a interview, a campus visit with them. So I'm sure my answer was not impressive. I was just like, this is a terrible question to ask somebody. It's not like I was giving a teaching. I don't know. It was just one of those questions that I was like, oh my God, I have no idea how to answer this.
But I think what's interesting there, though, is that the way you feel about the school that asked that question, as it turns out, they didn't offer you the next level of the interview, which is fine because you didn't end up liking those folks anyway.
No, I was very like, that's really not.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's one of those things, like, if I was giving a teaching demonstration, knowing that that's what you want me to talk about,
right,
I would love to tell you how I, like, explain it and give you demos and really show you how I teach it. But to ask me cold turkey, I was like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, and maybe a more seasoned professor could have done a better job. But, like, my record, like, I'm a grad student and I haven't been teaching that long. Like, to expect me to be able to answer that well.
And the person's nervous.
Right.
And so, and plus, those definitions, they're the way, depending on how you explain it, there are knots in there. You do this when you should not do that. You do that. You do not do that when you should do this. It'd be very easy to get jumbled. And then if you get it wrong, are they going to disqualify you?
Right. And I think that's kind of was my, like, thought was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're asking this. And I think I said something off the hand about throwing a table up and walking them through the table.
Right, a 2x2,
the 2x2
of course.
table. And like that's what I said. And I was like, that's not great.
To give those definitions without the whole context and without a few minutes. I mean,
so don't do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's a great. I think admissions committees sometimes don't have that context anymore of what it's like for the interviewee.
Yeah.
Unless they have someone they've just hired who has just come on board successfully and says to them, hey, I'm really glad to have a job with all y'all, but that question about startup funds, that's really a trap question because I don't really know how to answer that. So maybe we should think about not asking that one.
Mm-hmm.
So were there any, let's flip it. Were there any questions that when you were asked went, wow, that department has really thought about this process. I am impressed by them.
I can't remember anything like that. At least not, especially not during phone interviews. I think it was a little too long ago for me to remember.
That's all right. That's over 4 years ago for you. So let's go to you did 4 campus interviews.
Yeah, a lot.
Do you have any, I'm going to ask parallel, any great things that happened or any knockout factors that happened? Because I got to tell you, I didn't have 4 campus interviews. I was invited to 4 different campuses.
I mean, one of the ones I went to was very fun because I knew they were really excited about me before I even stepped foot. When they called to tell me they wanted me to interview, it was like the same day as another interview, and I had to tell them I have another interview. I can't. And they worked really hard with their HR people to change the dates so that I could come because they really wanted me. So that was like nice because it took the pressure off.
Did they want you to come before the other one?
No, they ended up, I think I did. Did I go I think I must have gone before the other one.
That's the strategy you would want.
Although they didn't call me back until after the other one. So that was nice because it took the pressure off and I felt like I performed better in terms of like my teaching demo and all that stuff. And you could just see how excited they were. I don't remember any particularly bad. I mean, there's stuff I did that was bad. Like I remember having a dinner conversation with someone at a university and they had a little bit more research focus than where I ended up at, or even some of my other interviews. I interviewed at a lot of community colleges.
Sure.
So we were talking about research, and I remember I said something kind of offhand about it not being my passion.
About research not being your passion.
Yeah, and I think that was probably not the right thing to say. at a school where research is semi-important. But it was also like one of my first ones, I think. Like, it was fine because it ended up not being a good fit.
But you were being honest.
And I was being honest. So, I mean, it's better for them to know that and not hire me.
And you had been honest up until that point, including in your application materials and including the phone interview.
Yes.
So it's not like your story had changed once you were there
No, it
in
wasn't.
person.
I think it was more of a like, oh, she's maybe not quite as interested in research as we were hoping.
But you would have still done the research.
Yes, I still would have done research. And
if the criterion was 4 publications in 6 years, you'd have still done 4 publications in 6 years.
And I'm getting a lot more excited about research again after having taken a break.
Well, and you know, I don't know how much flexibility you have, but maybe your research becomes the scholarly impact of blog posts on changing society's attitudes towards psychological science.
There you go. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm doing a little bit more scholarship of teaching and learning.
Yeah.
Some a little bit more formal stuff with that, and I've got some ideas about some other things I want to be doing. But you know, who has time for that?
Well,
I don't have time for that.
But okay, now, Ciara, you're the person who found time to do things who didn't have time for anything.
Yes, I feel like blogging does not take as much time as it does. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't take as much time because you've gotten expertise at it.
That's true.
You've developed a skill.
Faster for me to put
of course
together
it is.
than it was early.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I want to ask you one more thing about the job stuff. You had 2 offers, and I'm assuming that it wasn't as simple as one was more money than the other. And by the way, if it was, that's okay. And money is an important thing. But if it wasn't that, what would you mind sharing what the tipping point was?
The other job offer was at a community college.
Okay.
And they only had 3 psych classes that they offered that they could teach. And only one of them I was qualified for. So I would have been teaching intro psych for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And I was not thrilled about that.
You don't think there would have been the chance to develop that into more of a program?
I don't think so, because I want to say it was part of like the statewide, like that was all they were allowed to teach in terms of like transferring to, I think they had more. I want to say when I applied, they were on the books, they were still teaching like social psych, which would have been my other area. But then I remember, I want to say I talked to the dean or someone like that, and he explained that they were actually cutting back their courses. And I think it was like development and abnormal. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not qualified to teach either of those classes, nor do I necessarily want to. So then it was like intro psych, especially at that time, I was like not as thrilled about intro psych. I like it a lot more now that I've been teaching it more. But even then, I'm not Jason Spiegelman. Like, I don't love intro that much to teach it.
He's a pretty big fan.
I just, as I mentioned on Twitter, I was binge listening on the way here, and he was one of the ones I was listening to. And I was like, yeah, that 5 sections of intro for years.
Back to back.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I could not do that, which is why I was like, nah, this job is not for me. And then location-wise, too, I was not particularly into it once I actually visited. I was like, I don't think I really want to live here. So it wasn't a hard decision for me. Yeah. And it actually came after I accepted at Marian as well. So it was an easy, like, thank you for thinking of me, and for loving me, but
Wisconsin is pretty far from growing up from Washington State.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people I'm from everywhere because I actually was born in Texas.
Okay.
Lived there until I was 6. My parents moved back to Washington. I moved to Washington, then went to Pennsylvania, worked at Lowe's up in New York, and then back to Texas, and now Wisconsin.
All right.
So yeah, Wisconsin for my husband and I was kind of central. So his family is from central New York. Mine is from Washington. So it's sort of, kind of, not really, but kind of central.
Yeah.
And it had the things he wanted, like the outdoorsy things that he wanted to do. That was actually the only job interview I took him with. because it was the only place we didn't really have a good idea of what it would be like. Like, people hear the word Wisconsin or the name Wisconsin,
Right.
but besides like cheese, you don't really know what Wisconsin is like.
Cheese is a pretty good indicator. It really
Yeah, but you don't think about like, well, cheese means farms and
is. Dairy,
corn
yeah.
and things like that. So it was one that we're like, we both need to go and like actually see what Wisconsin is like before we decide that we're gonna move there.
So we're coming up on an hour. I want to be respectful, but I have a couple. Do you have time for
Yeah,
just a
I've
couple
got
more?
all the time you want.
Well, I really appreciate that. I really do. So you're in year 4. So this is promotion. So promotion
Getting
and tenure.
there, I think I apply end of next year. At the end of my 5th year, I apply. So
the end of the
into my 6th year
Okay.
is when they decide tenure.
And-
But I did have my 3-year review.
And
As far as I know, positive. My peers had a positive. You know, like I've been on track.
they don't tell you. I mean,
Yeah. So my dean review is like next week. But like I said, my peers tell me I'm on track,
oh, okay.
and every year my dean says I'm on track.
Okay,
so
good. Yeah,
I'm pretty confident I'm
Yeah.
not going to have an issue. But
Good. Well, good. I mean, you know, when we all do this right, there should never be a surprise.
right.
When senior faculty are doing their jobs, we are mentoring our colleagues one way or the other. It should
Yes.
never be a surprise.
Yes, and
It-
we've been working at our institution to make that happen.
Yep. Ideally, and it should be a slam dunk yes.
Yes.
It should be a slam dunk with, no limping over the finish line. It should be yes, yes, yes. This is easy
Yeah.
peasy. So, do you think your colleagues in your institution get how special it is what you've done in 3.5 years?
I don't know. I think so. One of my colleagues is she just joined us full time last year. She teaches. She's going to be our primary instructor for our master's in industrial organizational psych. But she's pretty active on Twitter, and I know she's interactive with my blog quite a bit more. I think she, to an extent, recognizes what it is and stuff. But I would say my other colleagues, we're technically really just the 3 of us in undergrad. My other colleague does some hitting for us. We have like 20 sections a semester. So we're all teaching overload, 5, 6 classes instead of 4, and advising and all this service and all that stuff. So we're all so busy that I think I'm came in already knowing about things like NITOP and SDP and being active and meeting the people by happenstance. And then after meeting them, they've helped me meet people. And that has helped me feel like, and I think my colleagues don't have that same relationship with like the teaching of psych. So they don't necessarily, I don't know that they see the, how big it is.
Yeah.
Like, I think they think it's cool.
Yeah.
And they respect it, but I don't know that they recognize what it's become.
By the way, I'm not so sure that those things happen by happenstance.
Well, I happened to meet Janelle. That was my first, like, this is how I met people like Bob Dubois and Jason Eggerman. And
but
I'm not going to be humble. I've done a lot of work. I'm not going to be that person.
Right, but you didn't accidentally stumble into the Tradewinds Hotel by accident.
No, that was not an accident. I think it was, for me, it was meeting. I'm going to give Janelle Cavazos from University of Oklahoma. It's not Oklahoma.
That's one, but there's a different one called Oklahoma State.
I think it's University of Oklahoma. The one in Norman? I don't know. She's going to hate me if I get it wrong. I think it's University of Oklahoma.
I think that's right.
Meeting her at the airport because we had the same bag. She
What, you fought over it?
No, we just had matching bags. No, we had matching bags.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
we're getting on it. We're boarding a plane. We have matching bags. And she noticed I was carrying a poster. So we were going to St. Petersburg, and so she started to talk to me, and we sat next to each other in the airport because it was a Southwest flight, so we sat next to each other. And then she introduced me to her NITOP people. They got me on Twitter. And so those kinds of things, like I said, I did go to NITOP on my own, but meeting her and her introducing me to other people got me to, I think, in touch with people that helped me be successful.
I'll give you the coincidence in the airport.
That was entirely coincidental.
I will give you that. But and I am really awful with people, and I apologize if I'm giving you too much crap about this. But after that, you had the conversation. You sat with her.
Yes.
If you are, I don't know if you're an introvert or an extrovert.
I'm an introvert.
I'm an introvert too. And so the introvert could have gone straight from the check-in counter, the trade winds, to your hotel room and never had a conversation with any of those people you just mentioned.
Yes, I agree.
So you networked
I did.
the hell out of that place.
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard.
That's the thing that you get that I know you're taking credit for.
Yeah.
I give you credit for taking credit for it. Yeah. So I will give you the lucky coincidence. No, I'm going to take back the word luck. I'm going to give you the coincidence and the good fortune of bumping into somebody. But after that, you leveraged that.
I did.
You saw something, or someone saw something. Janelle saw something in you, and you met Bob, and then Bob introduced you to somebody else, to somebody else, to somebody else, and then boom, there it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I will not be the humble person. Like I will recognize my worth.
Do you listen to the podcast?
I do a little bit.
Yeah, you do. Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
I did this.
It's one of my favorite things to laugh about because I agree. Like I have always felt that way too. But then I do. So I was like, oh, if he asks me, like, if we talk about this, the only luck thing that I ever say is luck, besides the coincidence, is that I say I'm lucky enough to have the privilege to go to any college I wanted to. And because one of the things I've noticed with students, I always try to encourage them to like go out of state. Obviously, like I've done a lot of that, and it has benefited me quite a bit. And I try to encourage students to do that, but I also have begun to recognize that not everybody has that privilege to be able to do that. They have parents they need to take care of, or they don't have, culturally it's not acceptable to leave and go somewhere else. Right. And so for me, it's the luck of birth that my parents were willing to let me do whatever I want and be independent. And they were confident that I could do that because of my personality or my skills or whatever. But wait, that's the only luck part that I put in.
No.
Like when I think about the job market, not everybody can apply to 60 schools or 10 graduate schools or whatever it was because they don't always have.
It wasn't lucky that you applied. There wasn't a luck of you didn't.
It wasn't a luck of the draw.
No.
In that way, I just think of like a luck of circumstance that I was in a position I could do that.
Right. I mean,
that was lucky for me.
So and
I did it. That's on me. Yeah. But lucky that I could do it. And maybe luck isn't the right word.
Yeah. When I talk about privilege when I give a talk, my privilege is out of a form of luck. So I did nothing to earn being white. I did nothing to earn being male. I did nothing to earn being born in the United States.
Yes.
Those three things combined, whether you could call those luck.
Coincidence.
Luck, coincidence, circumstance, they were totally out of my control. That gave me an incredible advantage in life that so many others don't have, that I need to leverage for a greater good every day that I can possibly.
Yeah.
So calling that lucky makes sense to me. But the hard work that you've done and, getting the blog or getting the job or the IB classes that you took in high school to get the grades, to be able to apply or to have the confidence to apply to 80 grad schools or 80 jobs. I mean, that wasn't lucky.
No, that was planning. That was me being a planner.
That was type A Ciara.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and that is a trait that's paid off.
Yes,
And
it has.
and I want to thank you for the time that we spent. It's
thank
been
you for
absolutely
having me.
delightful, and I'm gonna try to close this out. Did we catch everything that you'd hoped for?
I didn't really have
You had low
prescribed thoughts.
expectations, is what you're saying.
Well, I just didn't know what we would talk about. So I was like, well, I've listened to enough. I feel like we'll talk about some stuff, and I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for rearranging.
Well, no, thank you.
Scheduling.
Thank you for rearranging and trusting that I would actually show up and be in the room I said I would. Thanks again.